Hello and happy, beautiful day to you. Today, I want to share with you one of the most pivotal breakthroughs that I had going through my own healing journey that really changed everything for me. And ultimately, it led to a cascade of insights and awarenesses that were really pivotal, that changed my entire life, of course, helped me heal myself, everything. And the insight is this, I went from a place of working on healing myself, of, waiting for my body to heal itself, and kind of in this place of really magical thinking, just waiting for the magic to happen. And when I went from magical thinking to logical thinking, and I started to really understand everything logically, it was profound. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the magic of life, if you will. I mean, really, when you stop and think about it, our world is absolutely amazing. I mean, we're literally on the side of a planet, and yet it feels like we're standing and walking around and driving our car on flat ground. And so don't get me wrong, our world is an incredible magical experience, and yet there are also rules of the universe, or there's a logic to it that is pivotal. And so that pivot for me, from going from magical thinking of, the meditating and the thinking positively, to then getting in the logic, it was like one epiphany after another on how to work with my mind and what I needed to do. And I just kept getting more and more and more clarity. And so that is, switching from magical thinking to logical thinking, and of course keeping the magic, but the logical thinking was pivotal. So that was one thing. And then as I started to then go look at the medical journals, you've probably heard me say before, if you've been following my work, that multiple personality disorder was pivotal. Just seeing the awareness that people with multiple personality disorder could have different illnesses and different personalities was profound, because it helped me to realize I could get results faster. And also you could see how people with incurable illnesses could have a different personality that didn't have the same illness. So it showed me so many things. And it also, of course, showed me that the same illness stayed with the same mindset, meaning that if somebody had, 6 different personalities, personality 1 would have the same illness, but then personality 2 would have a different one, and personality 3 would have a different one. And every time they went back to that same personality, it was the same illnesses. So it showed me that the mindset was consistent, not just the physical body, of course. And so that was really profound, and that they were also medically documented. So it wasn't just that a person was faking a certain type of illness, but they could actually have medically documented, measurable, changes in different personalities. And so that was profound. Now, beyond that, when I really started understanding that I needed to bring in a logic, I started also looking at the mind in a logical way and how to work with the mind. And, one thing that actually was profound was the awareness of changing our mindset to do things also in a different way. And this is what I mean, and this is part of where this episode is actually coming from, is this weekend. Actually, I went to go wash my car, and I was sitting there at the car wash while my car was being washed. And I saw this butterfly, and I was like under an awning, if you will, an overhang, outside. And I watched this butterfly try to just escape and escape and escape. And it was trying to go. And of course, I love butterflies. I love every animal, but I wanted to fix it for it, but of course I couldn't, but it was just hitting its head over and over and over on this awning cover, if you will, so it was just hitting its head and hitting its head and hitting its head. And I just wanted to help it see that it could get out, because what was also happening is at the edge of this awning was like a 1 foot drop, if you will, like it was, keeping the sun out, if you will. And so, and it was see-through. So, I mean, it wasn't completely keeping the sun out, but it was shaded. And so the butterfly just kept trying to go. And I watched this butterfly for like 20 minutes, and all I wanted to do was fix it. And you could see the butterfly, it would go for a while, and it hit its head, hit its head, hit its head, hit its head. And then it would sit there and rest for a little bit. It would find a beam, and it would sit there and rest. And then it would do the same thing. It would go back and hit its head, and trying to then fly. And so often as I was watching it, it just, it reminded me of just so many people in life where they're frustrated. They're wanting change. They're wanting to heal. They're wanting the relationship. They're wanting what they're wanting. And yet there's an invisible ceiling. There's an invisible ceiling that they can't break through, and they're hitting their head. Now, a lot of times what you see people do what? Give up or surrender. Now, all this butterfly needed to do was, of course, relax for a moment, because it was like flying and hitting its head and flying. It was relax for a minute and then do things in a different way. But instead, what it did is it kept, relaxing on the beam for a little bit, and then it went back to doing the same thing over and over again. And I was like, oh, I just want to help it. And of course, it's not like I kind of grabbed the butterfly. It was, 10 feet in the air. And so, or maybe more, but either way, as I was looking at it and watching it, so often people do that very thing. But imagine for the moment, if the butterfly calms down and then changes its mindset, like gets rid of the programming that says to do things in a certain way, and changes its programming to open its mind a bit more, then does things in a different way. That is key for getting results in life. And so if we stop and look at it for a moment, this is, and I know that's a simple analogy, but this is what's profound, is that so often I'll see people who are hitting their heads, so to speak, and then what they end up doing is they end up, maybe they give up. They say, oh, there's no point. It's just never going to happen, because there's that block. Or they feel frustrated or exhausted, or they surrender and just acceptance of how things are. Or what I'll even see people do who know that they really need to reprogram the mind, they do what? They say, oh, I'm just going to welcome and accept this same emotion. Now what happens is this, is that if you think about going back to logic, if we welcome and accept something into our mind, it stays there, right? Just like if we welcome and accept the alphabet, but we don't change it. Or we welcome and accept, numbers, but we don't change them, then it's in there in the same way. And if we think about logic for a moment, we know that patterns breed more of the same. We could look at psychology. If you think about repetition, compulsion, reenactments, attachment theory, so we can get very technical, or we could call it law of attraction, whatever you want to call it. What happens all the time is patterns breed more of the same, but people don't realize it's happening typically. And so patterns breed more of the same. And so what happens, I see all of the time, is this, is that either somebody will stay stuck in the same patterns, or they end up relaxing themselves, so to speak, but they never really change the pattern itself. And so what happens is that even if they get out of one situation, they end up in another and another and another, because the pattern is still there. And so ultimately what we really have to do is not just calm the mind. Yes, that's of course important. Calming the mind and the negative emotions is key, but we also have to really rewire the information at a deeper level. Another way to think about it is like the alphabet, so to speak. If we bring in the alphabet the same way, and we just accept it, it is what it is. Okay, but let's say we bring in the alphabet and we actually look at the alphabet and we change the alphabet. Now things have really changed in life. Now, of course, keeping the alphabet the same is important for speaking a common language. But when it comes to our lives, if we're changing the alphabet, so to speak, if we're changing these patterns, if we're changing the subconscious programming, now we really change our actions, our mindset, but we also change the patterns that we're attracting as well. So this may seem a little bit confusing, but my point is that when we really are willing to change on the inside our mindset, so going back to the butterfly, if we're really willing to change our mindset and stop doing things in the same way but really being willing to look outside of the box, to rewire ourselves, to think in a different way, that's when we get unstuck in life. And so if we just bring this together for a moment, it's this. It's simply that if you've been stuck in any area of your life, I'd invite you not to give up, not to feel exhausted and stressed or like it's impossible, but instead take a breath, take a step back, and really work on calming your emotions, and then rewire your mind to look at things in a different way. Just like with the butterfly, to rewire it to look at things in a different way. And the answers are there. They reveal yourself. There's always a way. There's always a new opening. And not only do the answers reveal themselves, but as we change our mindset, we can attract new patterns in life. And so it's profound. And so part of the reason that I share this, and maybe simple but profound is this, is so often I see people who do this. They're hitting their head on the, like the butterfly. They calm down and, and relax and just accept the emotions. And then it shows up somewhere else and shows up somewhere else and shows up somewhere else. And so it keeps them stuck, or they just give up or surrender and accept or just feel defeated. And so if you know that the answer is there, it's always there. It's always there. So just like with the butterfly, it was going up and hitting its head and hitting its head. Finally, it started doing things in a different way to be able to move towards a way to get out. And watching that, we're all capable of that very thing. And so if we were to bring this together, I'd say number one, don't ever give up. Don't give up, but be willing to change, be willing to see things in a different way. And also be willing to really change what's in your mindset, because the more you do, the more you realize that we are all so much more incredible than we realize. Life is more incredible. And if you think about anything that anybody else has done, from healing themselves to changing their life to having amazing relationships and love and connection and confidence and joy and happiness and bliss, that's all there. But so often, like that butterfly, you can find yourself hitting an invisible ceiling. And if we just are willing to change and really reprogram at a deeper level, everything can change. And so, food for thought, just some insights. When you just start to look at everything in a logical way, you can start to see how everything is possible. And so, food for thought. And that's today's quick IQ episode. And as always, I want to ask you to please do take just a quick moment to hit the share button on this episode. Share it with somebody you love, somebody you care about, or somebody you don't even know, because the more that every single person is empowered and loved and loving and feeling free to be and grow and expand in this life, the better this world is for all of us. And so please do make a point to hit the share button, and please do make a point to have a most wonderful, loving, expansive, incredible rest of your day. And I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. We'll see you there.